Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Lost Begotten channel, where we are tracking Hurricane Harvey as it imminently makes landfall in Corpus Christi, Texas. And hopefully we've talked about it enough that the worst case scenario will not happen. Because, well, you know, apocalypse is important and all. But I got plans this weekend.
Lord, it takes my pain back to breathe out of another thing. I know, oh Lord, I know it's in my heart and baby down in my soul. You, baby, you can't take it no more. No, I know I'm walking out that door the way it treated me too many times before. Don't you know you love them, baby, too? Oh, you know I want you there, I want to be right there with you. I know I gotta keep you by my side till the day I die. 'Cause baby, ecstasy is in my hand. Oh, when I'm holding yours in mine and walking in the sand. Oh, baby, you know it's fine. Oh, now you done and piss me off. You ain't done something you shouldn't have done. Baby, I'm mad. I'm going on. Oh, I'm going on.
Good evening, morning, afternoon, whatever the hell it is, wherever the hell you are. I hope it's a great one. And those naive contrivances do, of course, not extend to the people of South Texas in general. Because it looks like they're about to get fucking hammered. This storm is beautiful. It's got a perfect surrounding, nothing to mess it up but land. And as you can see, it's headed basically up the Colorado River there in Corpus Christi, or right next to Corpus Christi. In fact, I believe it's headed dead up the Colorado River. And there's plenty of grassland, marsh, swampy type areas right there, surrounded by desert. But see, what's going to happen is once that rain starts to fall, it's going to evaporate back up pretty quick because of the rocky and sandy and drier grassland areas out there. I've driven all through there. It's very nice. Very, very lovely, peaceful, long stretches of highway between Houston and Mexico. And I have long thought that Corpus Christi was going to be sort of the beginning of the end of the end. Yeah. One way or the other. Either my plan for saving the world with coastal restoration programs and a complete replenishment of the oceanic ecosystem, that would start in Corpus Christi. You know, no pun intended. Just fate. But, as you may know, due to the fuckery and suppression, including financial defraudment by YouTube against this channel, you know, basically the world is going to die. And, you know, why not get started in Corpus Christi? Starting with all of the wonderful, globally invested oil refineries down there in South Texas, which pretty much leaves Texas very conducive towards that Russian-paid far-right propaganda. I've actually partied with Russians in Texas. Like, there's like colonies of Russians in Texas. It's the fucking weirdest thing you'd never expect, but actually they've been there since the 1800s. That's just as far back as I know. Well, so right now I'm looking up at the radar. Let me go ahead and pull that up. As wonderful as these satellite views are, they're not quite as detailed. As you can see, it's about to slam into the shore in the next hour and a half, 2 hours. I do have the chat window up. Feel free to say hello, introduce yourself if you're a new person. And I'm going to try to get this program I have here to play a playlist. And, you know, I've never really made playlists before, because I always use Winamp, so I just would drag shit into Winamp. So I've never actually made a playlist with Windows Media Player. In 30 fucking years of using Microsoft Windows, I've never actually made myself a playlist with Windows Media Player. Until today. But I don't know where the hell it went. You know, it just says save playlist. It doesn't let you pick a thing. Oh, maybe under music where it says playlist. Oh, there it is. Ermagerd. Did anything happen? I don't even know if that worked. Did that work? I don't think it worked. No, it did not work. Well, so much for a convenient way to play music on here. Videos, images, game capture, widgets, video playlist. Huh. Maybe it'll let me play an audio playlist. So anyway, whoever's here, thanks for joining me, and I hope you find my weather maps useful. Those are updated satellite infrared images from unisys.com. Of course, you can go see them yourself, but then you wouldn't get to hear me babble about nonsense. So, whatever would you do? Doesn't appear as though that's going to work with the whole playlist thing. So it's video playlists, and audio does not let you. Nope. Oh, and now it's going to ask me, it's going to make me try to buy stuff. Oh, well, never mind then. Damn. Alright. So I guess I'll just put on some music every now and again when I can get here and put it on. Because we are about to prepare to take a trip. And I've got friends coming over, gonna crash over here at our place and take care of the fishies for me. And gonna be training them on how to feed the fishies, of course. And I gotta make sure my auto top off container's full. And we'll be cool. Because tomorrow is MACNA. And if you don't know what MACNA is, I'm not going to tell you. Because I don't want random, stalkers and Russian fuckers showing up at MACNA, forcing me to kick their ass. Oh, I know. How boastful of me. A mere martial arts master with 30 fucking years experience. Anyways. Not including the previous lifetimes and whatnot. Not including that. Can't include that. That's cheating. Just because it helps doesn't mean I should include it in my warnings. Anyways, typically, I don't feel the need to defend myself when I'm with my wife, because she's 5'11" and fucking scary. Anyways, so let's see here. If anybody's got any requests from the songs that you know that I have recorded, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, like I said, say hello, chat it up in the chats. I'm going to be in and out on here. And I will try to keep the satellite images updated. And this radar seems to be self-updating, so there it is.
Okay, major. You might want to do A. Mm-hmm. Driving at you, baby, at your brain. I'ma try real hard. Play my cards right, baby, not at all. Here it comes, coming to you. I'm finding, baby, what's deep in you. I'ma try to find myself. great world with this bad hell. Trying to find me too in the midst of the elves I see. Then I know the Holy Ghost, but it tries to get me close. I'm going to a place where I won't find nobody but you. I'm trying to not lose my cool, but it's a coming and I can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you. Peace of mind deep inside, but it's coming, baby, and you can't hide. I'm trying to find you where some baby out with the long brown hair. Come on, girl, come to me. I want you, baby, more than you can see. I'm coming hard. It's a coming, baby, you can't stop. Baby, can't stop loving you. I know, baby, no, I can't stop loving you. I can't, baby, no, can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you. People go, they keep running, but they're running too slow. I'm unkind, I know why. Smoke the shit, man, to get real high. Here I'm trying to find you, babe, on a plane love's away. I'm crying in the rain, but it's hard to see my pain through you. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh I can stop loving you, loving you, I can't stop loving you, loving you, loving you, loving you. Loving you, loving you, loving, 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 loving you. attack from the demons that are coming at my home. It ain't hard, and it seems I know what's one of his evil schemes. I'm a-coming fast. Don't stop it now or you break your glass. It ain't hard to understand what it takes to be a loving man. I can't stop loving you. No, 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 can't stop loving you. No, no, baby, no. I said no, honey, darling, no, I can't stop loving you. Oh, what I say now, Sean? I said no, baby, I can't stop loving you. Here we go, take me out. No, 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 I can't stop loving you. Oh, here you go, baby. No, no, baby, I can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you. That's right, loving you, baby. I love you. Woo. I'm giving you. You major. You might want to do that. Mm-hmm.
Alright, so thanks for joining us here at the Lost Begotten Fake TV channel, your only source for actual truth. Today we're just covering a storm that has been sort of anticipated on the channel, you know, with the whole prophecy thing and whatnot. And let's see. One person's birthday, the eclipse happened. The other person's birthday, this is happening. Interesting. Blood relatives of mine. And this is all related to an interesting dream I had in 2003 or 4, in which a storm just kind of kept looping back and just hanging out in the Gulf of Mexico for a while. And I'm trying to jinx the worst possibility by saying that it can happen, because it's kind of how shit works with me. If I keep something to myself, it's guaranteed to happen. And I'll be like, oh, I should have told somebody. Anyways, so my fear of all fears is that basically this just becomes a never-ending storm. And it's kind of the result of, you know, that thing that the Trump administration recently said they're not going to talk about anymore, which is climate change, global change, climate warming. Really, that's what it should be. Climate change. No. Climate warming. Global change. Climate warming equals global change. The whole fucking reality that humans thought they lived in is going by at an increasingly rapid rate. Just fading by the wayside. You gotta understand, the ecosystem itself is an organism. And to a certain extent, it has an immune system. You're looking at it. To a certain point, not all of humanity, but certain elements of humanity have just become more than Mother Nature can bear to tolerate. And as promised about 5 days ago, there's been some selective arrangements taking place all over the globe. And this is one of them. There's some special people doing some special business down there. And I wanted to hit them where it hurts. This whole Ruspublican oligarchy has got to fucking end. So anyways, thanks for joining me at the Lost Begotten channel. Please enjoy the music, and let me know if you get bored of these songs. I'll change them over. I can't use a playlist, so it's just kind of like one song at a time now. But this one's good, and it's 8 minutes long, so should be the hardest one to get bored of.
Loving you, loving you, I can't stop loving you, loving you, loving you, loving you, loving you, loving you, loving, 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 loving you.
Actually, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to see if I can find any kind of local... Oh, there's CBS News. Let's see if they've got any kind of on-the-ground reporting.
One road in and out.
Oh, there we go. Okay, hold on 1 second.
Run one road in and out, and so the officials here have warned that anybody who's staying, you're really risking your life if there is no water or food for days or a way to get to you. So they're really seeing both worlds there. The people who are deciding even last minute to just get out of town, and those who are saying that they're going to ride it out.
Manny, I suppose you met some people who lived through Hurricane Ike there in 2008. That was a Category 2 hurricane, and it was devastating. This is now a Category 3. Why is this comparison concerning?
Well, it's because clearly this appears to be a much more powerful...
What's interesting about my life, along with the other things like, prophecy that explained everything that goes on today, and, being able to summon lightning and whatnot. Every major storm since Gilbert has hit either me or one of my immediate family. Mostly me. I think Andrew was the only one that didn't actually hit me. It hit my sister right after she moved to New Orleans. It's the only one since like the fucking 80s that wherever it hit, I wasn't there. But since 2011, none of them have hit. Until a few days ago, Said, okay, time for a fucking natural disaster. And here we are.
What is happening already, what you're already starting to see, is that nationwide the average price of gas has started to surge to levels not seen since April, and depending on what this does, clearly the impact could affect a lot of people nationwide and their pocketbooks when they go to the pumps.
Manuel Bajorquez, thank you. Stay safe. We are now going to listen in to our affiliate KHOU in Houston.
Well, as we've been seeing, parts of Texas are already experiencing Hurricane Harvey's impact. Tropical storm strength winds have reached parts of the Texas coast. Take a look at that. And the gusts are only expected to strengthen. And once that happens, officials say stay indoors.
Meanwhile, some coastal cities have been issuing mandatory evacuations. People are being encouraged to take shelter and stay.
That looked like Sao Padre Island.
Chief Hurricane Specialist at the National Hurricane Center. He joins us now from Miami. So our first question is, where is this storm headed and when? Break down the timing for us, please.
75 miles east-southeast of Corpus Christi, Texas. It's moving off to the northwest at about 10 miles per hour. So we expect the core of Harvey, where we have those major hurricane 120-mile-per-hour winds, to reach the coast of Middle Texas coast sometime tonight or early Saturday morning. So that's going to bring the core of the hurricane on shore, and that is extremely dangerous conditions in that region.
Michael, this is being compared to Hurricane Ike that hit Texas back in 2008. Explain that comparison and why that might concern us.
Well, every hurricane is different. We try to not get in the comparison realm here because every hurricane has its own unique hazards. What Harvey has that's unique for it is that it has three distinct life-threatening hazards. It has this core of very strong winds that have the potential to be life-threatening and damaging on their own when that eye wall moves ashore later tonight. But there's also the storm surge hazard, where we're going to see 6 to 12 feet of inundation or flooding above ground level with the center as it moves on shore, basically anywhere between the north entrance of the Padre Island National Seashore and Sargent, Texas. That's where we're most concerned about the storm surge flooding hazard. So that's life-threatening storm surge for anybody who's in a low-lying area or a storm surge-prone area in that part of the Texas coast. And then finally, because Harvey's going to slow down so much over the next few days, it's basically going to meander here over southeast Texas and through the middle of next week. And that's going to basically result in a huge area of 15 to 25-inch rainfall totals across southeast Texas, including the Houston, Galveston area, Victoria, Corpus Christi, and potentially we could see isolated rainfall amounts as high as 35 inches. So there's going to be a lot of water with this hurricane, both for storm surge and rain. And water is what kills about 70% of people in the United States in hurricanes. So that's the most dangerous hazard that we have.
So you talked about rainfall, the risk, the threat of storm surge. We've also heard about the threat of tornadoes. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, hurricanes often produce tornadoes especially on their periphery as they make landfall. Right now there's a tornado watch that's been issued for the middle and upper portions of the Texas coast and into southwestern Louisiana that goes into the overnight hours tonight. I know there's a couple of tornado warnings in effect right now. So that's something that people even on the periphery of the storm, well away from the center, have to be aware of and listen out for any watches or warnings. These tornadoes and tropical cyclones can spin up very quickly. You might not get a lot of warning for them, but they can be damaging.
You might not be able to answer this, but what concerns you more, the initial impact here in the next many hours, or the fact that this rain could just continue for days and days? In other words, will we not really know the damage for maybe 48 or 72 hours, or will you have a good sense by tomorrow morning how bad this was?
Well, we'll have a sense from the core and the winds with the eye wall as it comes on shore and that initial storm surge, but the storm's going to move so slowly, there's going to be this prolonged period of onshore flow from the Gulf of Mexico into the Texas coast. It's going to keep water levels very elevated just from the ocean storm surge, and then you're going to have the rainfall on top of that, and the rainfall hazard is going to extend all the way from late this week through the weekend into early next week. So we're looking at really a multi-day disaster across portions of southeast Texas and the middle Texas and upper Texas coast from Harvey.
Dr. Brennan, since you're a hurricane specialist, I imagine you've been following hurricanes for several years. What are some trends that you've seen in terms of the number and intensity of hurricanes that have hit the United States?
Well, this is the first major hurricane, if it is a major hurricane at landfall, that will hit the U.S. in a long time. But we try not to focus so much on the sort of the statistics of how strong the storm is or or how big it might be. We're really trying to focus people on the hazards, because the hazards are what kill people: the rain, the winds, especially the storm surge. So we try to focus away from the specifics about the storm itself and focus on those life-threatening hazards that we see with Harvey, unfortunately.
Hopefully people will stay safe during Hurricane Harvey. Dr. Michael Brennan, thank you for joining us.
Sure.
Monster storm Harvey has strengthened to a Category 3 hurricane as it approaches landfall in Texas.
Millions are bracing for heavy, prolonged rain and devastating flooding. Hurricane, tropical storm, and storm surge warnings have been issued for parts of Texas.
Meteorologist Steve Baskerville of our Chicago station WBBM has the latest on the hurricane's path. Steve?
Well, Roxana and Brooke, to put this storm in perspective, you've got to go back 47 years to find one as intense, potentially as damaging, and that was Celia back in 1970 that swept across Corpus Christi. But let's take a look at it now. Pretty well-defined eye of the storm already in Corpus Christi, 60-mile-per-hour winds. They've had 2 to 3 inches of rain in that area, and that storm is within 50 miles of making landfall, and I think that's going to happen sometime after midnight or very early in the morning on Saturday. And it's an assortment of concerns. You'll notice that there's a hurricane warning until Monday morning for the Corpus Christi area, until Monday morning a tropical storm warning in effect for the Houston area. And you look at these little red areas, those are tornado warnings. That's also part of the problem as the storm moves closer to making landfall. So there are an assortment of concerns. It is not just for the moment it makes landfall and weakening. It could be a story for days. The very latest we have on it, 125-mile-per-hour winds moving pretty steadily northwest at 10 miles an hour. It's been doing that all day, but intensifying, unfortunately, as it gets closer and closer to making landfall. It only needs about 5 more miles per hour for wind speed to be a Category 4 storm, a very major, powerful, and devastating storm. Part of the concern is it looping and moving back out over the Gulf and moving toward Houston as a tropical storm. Not quite as severe as what it will be as it makes landfall, but still the concern is that as it's trapped between 2 weather systems, it has nowhere to go. So it will either stall out or meander with the high to the north and west of it and another high anchored to the south and east. That's the major concern of it not really having anywhere to go. And if it's that kind of situation, you could get up to 10 inches of rain in 24 hours, for instance, around Corpus Christi and all the way up toward Austin and western parts of Louisiana. Here's the way we see the next 24 hours. South of Dallas by tomorrow night, Saturday night, still a major rain maker by early Monday morning. Rain heavy in western parts of Louisiana. And once again, we've got multiple concerns. 120 to 140 mile-per-hour winds at times, 10 to 12-foot storm surge possible, 18 to 20 inches of rain by Monday morning. What was a Category 2 storm, strong enough with extreme winds and extensive damage a possibility, has been upgraded now to a Category 3. Houses, buildings, businesses, trees, power lines, all could be downed, mobile homes as well. We're just hoping that everybody has heeded the warnings and had moved away from the shoreline especially. Unfortunately, this is going to be a story not just for the weekend, but it could stretch on to the middle of the week next week if we do get that kind of flooding. Brooke and Roxana.
Steve, a question for you. You mentioned that there is a possibility even that this storm could turn into a Category 4 hurricane. How slim or likely do you think that possibility is?
Well, within the last couple of hours, it has been intensifying. About an hour ago, it was a 120-mile-per-hour wind speed associated with it, and it jumped up to 125. It could slow. It's not expected to be a Category 4 storm, so the odds are that it will stay at 3. The odds are it'll slow down and perhaps weaken somewhat in wind speed, but we don't want to give the impression that it won't be quite as dangerous, because no matter if it's 115 miles an hour, 120 or 130, still a very strong and dangerous hurricane, the likes of which folks who live around that area haven't seen in over 40 years.
You mentioned it making landfall sometime after midnight. Is that when we expect the worst of it?
Yeah, it'll be sometime late tonight around 10, 11 o'clock. You'll start to see the worst of it. Not necessarily in Corpus Christi, because some of the worst of the weather tends to be to the north of the eye of the storm. So it may not be exactly at Corpus Christi, but anywhere up toward Victoria and eastward toward parts of northeastern parts of Texas and Louisiana could also feel the brunt of the storm anywhere between midnight and the overnight hours as well.
A lot to watch in coming hours. Steve Baskerville, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Millions of people along the Gulf Coast are evacuating or hunkering down as Hurricane Harvey picks up strength. The storm is now a Category 3 with more than 110 mile-per-hour winds. It could bring 3 feet of rain to some areas and waves topping 12 feet.
Residents have been preparing for days now, boarding up windows and stockpiling food. Thousands are heading out of town ahead of what could be the most powerful storm to hit the United States in nearly 12 years. Corpus Christi's Mayor Joe McComb joins us now by phone. Mayor, we're thankful for your time on this busy day. You've been encouraging people to evacuate, but you haven't made it mandatory citywide. So why isn't it mandatory, and what's your message for residents?
Well, the reason it's not mandatory is that, one, you can't enforce it. You can't force people to leave. You can't send the police out there and drag them out. So my thought is, why do you do something if you can't enforce it? We can highly recommend it, and we've done that as plain English as we can, that they need to get off the low-lying areas. And out on Padre Island, Mustang Island, North Beach. And so they've responded very positively. We've had a great participation in people seeking higher ground. I just got off the phone talking to the mayor of Laredo, and he told me half of Corpus Christi's in Laredo. All their hotel rooms are full. So we've been successful. Many people in San Antonio and then points beyond. So they've heeded the warnings, and we've been able to focus our attention to making sure everybody's secure. The roads are open, the drainage ditches are open to the best of our abilities, and we have done everything possible to have a safe experience through this storm. Of course, we have no way of knowing, if the weather folks are right, then we're going to have a lot of rain, and then the storm surge. So you got the storm surge coming one way, you got the drainage system trying to drain everything back into the bays, so you've got competing energy forces there, which means the drainage is not going to be very fast. So it's going to be building up in the drainage ditches and on the streets, and hopefully not in the residences. But our main objective is to make sure that people are out of harm's way from the water and the wind. You can replace your house, you can replace your carpet, you can fix your car, but we just don't want to have anybody injured or killed.
And Mayor McComb, you said that a lot of people are heeding the warnings to evacuate. It might be hard to say, but is it about 50%, 75% of the residents have been leaving? Is it possible to estimate?
No, not really, because, in addition to the people that are in the low-lying areas, the rest of the community was free to leave, too. So, and I'm sure there's several that did that, and many that did. So it's hard to tell. I know the streets, when I got up this morning, they were pretty vacant, and then when I was working my way back to my house from City Hall, none of the shopping centers were open. Even the fast food places were closed, and some of the service stations, convenience stores, their pumps were still out where you could use your credit card, but they closed up. So there's really no reason for people to be out on the streets. There's no place to spend their money. And so they just need to stay home, just hunker down until the storm passes. And then when they are able to get out after the storm, don't drive through water. You never know that water looks level, but there may be a 10-foot hole underneath it where the street's washed out or something. So until they can actually see where they're driving, we just recommend that they don't get out. The good news is that this is a weekend, and people would have less pressure to get out and go do something, as opposed to if there's a work day, they'd really try to get to work. So things seem to be working in our favor for safety, human safety, and we just hope that people use good judgment.
Yeah, and for those using their judgment to evacuate, how is that going? We heard Governor Abbott talk about 200 buses that would help with the evacuation. Do you feel like that process is going the way you'd like to see it?
From what I understand, it's been very, very smooth. The game plan was that people that needed to evacuate that really didn't have a way to get out of town, if they could get themselves over to a staging area, what we call the natatorium. It's a big complex in our CCISD's sports complex where we got natatorium as a swimming facility, and then we got baseball fields, soccer fields, which is big parking areas. The people were brought over there, either brought over there by friends or relatives or church groups or whatever. Then they were put on a bus, and I believe they were taken to San Antonio. And we've got that's part of our game plan is working with San Antonio in situations like this that they do make provisions to put them up.
Sounds like a lot of cooperation between different communities. Go ahead, Mayor.
Well, I mean, it has just been amazing to see all of the backroom workings of how this plan is put together. The public has no concept of the number of people that are involved and the arrangements that are made, and I mean everything that you can think of has been thought of. I mean, nobody's called and said, "Oh, we didn't think about that." I mean, there's places that evacuate pets if we have to evacuate pets, and evacuate different things. So we really believe that our years of experience and practice and planning are going to pay off for us.
And how have officials there in Corpus Christi been working with state and federal officials heading into this?
Well, I mean, we've had contacts. I've had my office has been contacted from everything from the White House to our 2 senators, to our congressman, and then our governor has been in communication with us, our state representatives, and they're saying we're here, we're ready to move on a moment's notice when you give us the notice of what you need and where you need it. We're one big family down here in Texas, and we just everybody's pulling together, and I think when it's all over, I hope that we can be looked at as a model, as a benchmark of working together in cooperation and facing a terrible challenge.
Did y'all see that TSX with the carbon fiber hood? That was sweet.
Response and said this is primarily a state and local issue, and the federal government will kind of fill in the gaps as we can.
RSX.
Do you feel like you're getting the support from the federal government you want and need?
At this point, yes. I mean, until it's over, I guess when it comes in with FEMA, we'll have to do the assessment in terms of what kind.
That's Texans for you. They're out there sightseeing. Hey, look at the hurricane.
I'm sure there's many people down here that don't have flood insurance because floods are pretty rare in Corpus Christi. But
yeah.
Many people do have it, but there's some that don't. And because, we have a pretty good size and diverse community, so I just have no idea, but they are letting us know that they're on standby and they're ready to help and assist in any way. So, but you're right, the local community is responsible for itself, and the state and then the feds come in to help us.
I don't know what a riptide is.
The city, local elected officials, and the county officials. We've got a great working relationship. Our county judge was a former mayor. And then he became county judge. I've been a former city councilman and a former county commissioner. We've got good working relationships. Nobody's out on I'm in charge kind of trip. Everybody's we're all in this together, and it's been a wonderful experience. And I think it's the benchmark the way things get done.
So that's a great thing to hear. Mayor, you have been in Corpus Christi for quite some time, it sounds like. Were you there when Hurricane Ike hit Texas in 2008? How did this compare?
No, I wasn't involved with Ike. I've been here longer than that. I was here when Hurricane Celia hit.
And when was that?
That was in 1970.
Oh, wow.
And that was probably the biggest storm that hit Corpus Christi. The wind, the instruments they were using back in 1970, those instruments broke at a...
Poor girl's like, holy shit, how old are you?
It tore up a lot of boats down in the marina. But, I mean, as soon as it was over, we went out, raised the garage door, drove all around town to look at the damage, go down to my business and see what was happening down there. But in this one, thankfully...
Hold the cart around, hitch the horse up to it.
The storm surge and the rain, the vast amount of rain that we're expecting has really got everybody concerned.
Look at them, they're
Corpus
sightseeing.
Christi is flat, you know, and water doesn't drain real fast. And when you get this kind of water, this volume of water dumped on you, you know, your streets fill up pretty quick. And
why is Texas upside
it's
down?
It's just going to take a while for it to run off.
Yeah, last thing on that one.
You know, the hurricane's going to be the last of their worries. They're all about to fall off of the shit.
People's homes. There's also, you know, the refineries in the area that could be impacted. Describe your concern, preparation for kind of those longer term possible impacts.
Well, the refineries, I think they've backed down on their what they were doing. They've got skeleton crews out there. They're still producing products that, you know, you just can't go out and turn the light off on a refinery. So they are continuing to operate, but they've got skeleton crews there. You know, we certainly hope they don't end up being shut down, because that would be a tremendous economic impact on them, and I hope they don't suffer any damage as a result of this. They're extremely safety conscious. I do know that, and I'm sure they've taken every precaution they can to make sure that
they don't like to get sued.
You know, their plants are safe, their people are safe, and just hopefully the wind doesn't do them any damage that puts them out of business. But
the only ones left are going to get killed really quickly. We can guarantee that.
Something that people are going to have to develop a little patience with, because in August and September in Corpus Christi it's plenty hot.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have electricity, which means you're not going to have air conditioning. There's going to be a tremendous amount of humidity, and you know, I don't know how long it's going to take the mosquitoes to break out. So
hookers and blow will be in short supply.
People to be patient, because if they've got a need of a city service or something, that means, you know, probably 500 or 1,000 people have the same needs, and we're not going to be able to get to them first on the list. But at some point, we'll get all back. And the flooding, from what the AEP has told us on the power, is that if they can't get in to make the repairs because of flooding, we could be, you know, 48 to 72 hours without power throughout the city. So the longer you go without power in South Texas, without air conditioning, the ability to cook. I mean, there'll be a lot of charcoal boiling on their grill. And that will, you know, we'll use up the stuff in the freezers, because it's going to be thawed, so we're going to be eating pretty good for that first couple of days. But we'll survive, and we'll come out a stronger community for it. And whatever needs to be tweaked to do a better job next time, we'll make those adjustments. But I think they're going to do a great job this time.
All right, Mr. Joe McComb.
In Corpus Christi, the mayor of Corpus Christi, Texas, Mr. Joe McComb. Boy, he's a talker. I like him. I miss Texas sometimes. But anyways, I'm going to click it back over to music and the radar loop. Hopefully this is still working here. Yep, there we go. Because my wife's almost home, and I didn't want to shut down the stream. But you know, that's kind of annoying. And it's just much more convenient to have music playing instead of listening to that crap and trying to let y'all listen to that crap, and then we can't talk loud because then y'all gonna hear jumbled conversation with that crap. So crappity crap crapulence. Strong bad.
his evil schemes. I'm a
E major. You might want to do A.
Driving at you, baby, at your brain. I'ma try real hard. Play my cards right, baby, not at all. Here it comes, coming to you. I'm finding, baby, what's deep in you. I'ma trying to find myself in this great world with this bad hell. Trying to find me too in the midst of the ills I see. Then I know the Holy Ghost, but it tries to get me close. I'm going to a place where I won't find nobody but you. I'm trying to not lose my cool, but it's a coming and I can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you. You. Peace of mind deep inside, but it's coming, baby, and you can't hide. I'm trying to find you where some baby out with the long brown hair. Come on, girl, come to me. I want you, baby, more than you can see. I'm coming hard. It's a coming, baby, you can't stop. Baby, can't stop loving you. I don't, baby, no, I can't stop loving you. I can't, baby, no, can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you. People go, they keep running, but they're running too slow. I'm a kind, I know why. Smoke the shit, man, to get real high. Here I'm trying to find you, babe, on a plane of away. I'm crying in the rain, but it's hard to see my pain through you. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh I can stop loving you, loving you, I can't stop loving you, loving you, loving you, loving you, loving you, loving you, loving, 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 loving you. Trying to leave my soul intact from the demons that are coming at my home. It ain't hard, and it seems I know what's one of his evil schemes. I'm a-coming fast. Don't stop it now or you break your glass. It ain't hard to understand what it takes to be a loving man. I can't stop loving you. No, 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 can't stop loving you. No, no, baby, no. I said no, honey, darling, no, I can't stop loving you. Oh, what I say now, Sean? I said no, baby, I can't stop loving you. Here we go, take me out. No, 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 I can't stop loving you. Oh, here you go, baby. No, no, baby, I can't stop loving you. Oh, no, no, I can't stop loving you. That's right, loving you, baby. I love you. Woo.
E major. You might want to do A. Hey, James.
Hey, James.
Driving at you, baby, at your brain. I'ma try real hard. Play my cards right, baby, not at all. Here it comes, coming to you. I'm finding, baby, what's deep in you. wicked world with this bad hell. I'm trying to find me too in the midst of the elves I see. And I know the Holy Ghost, but it tries to get me close. I'm going to a place where I won't find nobody but you. I'm trying to not lose my cool, but it's a coming and I can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you.
Really? Got hit by that sonic attack. The bus upstairs. All right.
Newest infrastructure investment, part of the Governor Mario M. Cuomo Bridge, opens tonight. It will replace the aging Tappan Zee Bridge over the Hudson River.
Okay, so I guess I missed the detailed weather report there. I'm going to turn it back over to the radar map and put the music back on. I'm just trying to record today's events for future analysis. And, you know, hang out, chit-chat, that kind of stuff until we go to MACNA in the morning. And hopefully this won't screw it up. Hopefully we're just, you know, just by the skin of our teeth gonna make it without, you know, any trouble. So feel free to introduce yourself if you're new to the channel. I'm sure James will talk to you. Hey, Pedro. Oh boy. Pedro says North Korea just launched another missile. And on that bombshell, it's time to relax.
Oh, what I say now, Sean? I say, no, baby, I can't stop loving you. Here we go, take me out. No, 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 I can't stop loving you. Are you coming? No, no, baby, I can't stop loving you. Oh, no, no, I can't stop loving you. Loving you, baby. I love you. Woo.
I'm trying to be on here more and more, y'all, but I don't know if everybody's thinking that other people are donating, but nobody's donating. Certainly use some support. About to try to film a whole bunch of really cool footage of that, so you're gonna see some spectacular stuff get uploaded this show. You know. Not that I don't always do wonderful things for you. But you know, I gotta whine when I'm broke, right? Because I work, right? Well, not this.
Driving at you, baby, at your brain. I'ma try real hard. Play my cards right, baby, not at all. Here it comes, coming to you. I'm finding, baby, what's deep in you. I'ma trying to find myself in this great world with this bad hell. Trying to find me too in the midst of the ills I see. Then I know the Holy Ghost, but it tries to get me close. I'm going to a place where I won't find nobody but you. I'm trying to not lose my cool, but it's a coming and I can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you. Peace of mind deep inside, but it's coming, baby, and you can't hide. I'm trying to find you where some baby out with the long brown hair. Come on, girl, come to me. I want you, baby, more than you can see. I'm coming, coming hard. It's a coming, baby, you can't stop. Baby, can't stop loving you. I know, baby, no, I can't stop loving you. I can't, baby, no, can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you. People come and people go. They keep running, but they're running too slow. I'm unkind, I know why. Smoke the shit, man, to get real high. Here I'm trying to find you, babe, on a plane of some way. I'm crying in the rain, but it's hard to see my pain through you. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh I can stop loving you, you, loving you, loving you, I can't stop loving you. Loving you, loving you, loving you, loving you, loving you, loving, 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 loving you.
Hey, Pedro. North Korea launched more missiles, huh? I've been at work all day and have been extremely busy and have not gotten a chance to update myself on the news. I literally just walked in the door a few minutes ago. So please enlighten us on the whole missile thing. Was it just another test, or was he aiming for Guam?
If anything pops up, just unmute it.
Because I don't know if y'all heard, but CNN and the Washington Post did a story that Russia was actually sending North Koreans into Ukraine, and they've been doing this for like the last decade.
So they confirmed that Russia was behind it?
Oh, they were coming from the embassy in Moscow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they confirmed
awesome.
it. Coming from the embassy.
I called it again.
So Russians were sending the North Koreans from their embassy in Moscow to Ukraine to steal the plans for nuclear missiles, because, you know, Ukraine has nuclear weapons, or they did. They had the ability to make them until the Cold War supposedly, quote unquote, ended. And
kind of like a plausible deniability psyop.
Right, and we made Ukraine, or well, Ukraine was made to give up all their nuclear weapons to Russia and America. So that's how North Korea all of a sudden has these nuclear capabilities. It's because Russia sent them from the embassy in Ukraine or the embassy in Moscow to Ukraine, and they actually have a video
hold up. Okay. Ukraine still contends, and don't read the first part of a CNN story and go with the impression that you're left with from the headline, because it's usually the opposite of what the case is. They still got the plans from Moscow. Moscow sent the Koreans down there as counter-intel. Savvy? See, what happened is Ukraine still contends that there are no more Koreans unaccounted for in Ukraine, and that every Korean Moscow sent, they busted. And they set up without them stealing anything but dummy information.
Okay, but Russia still controls the entire east side of Ukraine.
Sure.
Donetsk and Donbass and all that are still under Russian control.
All right.
So Are they accounting for any North Koreans that might be on that side that they don't control at the moment?
That's the facility that they're talking about isn't in their hands.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
west of Kiev, if I looked at the map correctly.
Yeah, it's fine. But this is exactly what Russia would do if they wanted plausible deniability.
That they were the ones giving the information.
Exactly.
Right.
So all they would have to do to say the North Koreans didn't get it from us is send them to Ukraine. It's really quite simple. What do you guys think there in the comments?
Yeah, we're going to go back to muting it for a minute.
Trying to leave my soul intact from the demons that are coming at my home. It ain't hard, and it seems I know what's one of his evil schemes. I'm a-coming fast. Don't stop it now or you break your glass. It ain't hard to understand what it takes to be a loving man. I can't stop loving you. No, 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 can't stop loving you. No, no, baby, no. I said no, honey, darling, no, I can't stop loving you. Oh, what I say now, Sean? I said no, baby, I can't stop loving you. Here we go, take me out. No, 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 I can't stop loving you. Are you coming? No, no, baby, I can't stop loving you. Oh, no, no, I can't stop loving you. That's right, loving you, baby. I love you. Woo. E major. You might want to do that. Driving at you, baby, at your brain. I'ma try real hard. Play my cards right, baby, not at all. Here it comes, coming to you. I'm finding, baby, what's deep in you. I'ma trying to find myself in this great world with this bad hell. trying to find me too in the midst of the ills I see. And I know the Holy Ghost, but it tries to get me close. I'm going to a place where I won't find nobody but you. I'm trying to not lose my cool, but it's a coming and I can't stop loving you. You, I can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you. Peace of mind deep inside, but it's coming, baby, and you can't hide. I'm trying to
National Hurricane Center has upgraded it to a Category 4 storm. Gusts, or I should say sustained winds of 130 miles an hour, a storm surge that's expected to top 12 feet in some areas, and rain totals that could reach 40 inches. You can see the size of the storm in this image from the International Space Station. Look at that. 22 million people live in the storm's path. Many have decided to flee. David Begno begins our coverage from Corpus Christi.
As high winds and rain turn up waves, there is a rush to get out of Corpus Christi. For some, it's too late. Streets are already flooding. The National Weather Service says winds could leave homes uninhabitable for weeks or even months. Storm surge could reach 12 feet. That's strong enough to wash away vehicles.
This is going to be a very major disaster.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott has asked for a presidential disaster declaration.
We are going to be dealing with really record-setting flooding.
Fears of a power outage forced the sickest babies at a children's hospital to be moved out of the hurricane's path. Others are heeding the warnings and evacuating on their own. At this receiving center, Jessica Rodriguez and her 3 children waited for buses to take them to a shelter in San Antonio. Are you scared?
Very, but I try to be strong because I don't want my children to see and they get scared and it's just have them scared. I just have to be a strong mother for them.
Right now, Corpus Christi police say they are not responding to calls for emergency service because of the conditions. The Coast Guard tells us 12 people have already been rescued offshore. There is an extreme wind warning that has been issued, and the people who wanted to get a free ride out of town, there were some bus rides that were being sent to an evacuation shelter in San Antonio. Those are over. The city says if you haven't gotten out already, it is too late to do so.
David, we spoke to meteorologists throughout the afternoon who said, okay, it's upgraded to a Category 3. We don't think it's going to go to 4.
If you weren't on the stream a little while ago, that whole street just an hour ago, it looked like Saturday night, man. People were going up and down it, sightseeing. There were people in the water surfing.
Who said, no, it was just upgraded. I don't know that anyone was really expecting this if the weather people are being quite honest with you. I mean,
I was, and it ain't done yet, babies.
What are we seeing right now? It's very windy. Sustained wind gusts of, I'd say, 50 miles an hour or so. So this is one of the main areas. We're staying at a Holiday Inn. By the way, the crew and I are taking extreme precautions to be safe. Lots of boats in that area, gazebos where people would normally congregate. I got to be honest with you, most of the traffic, Brooke, are people riding around like this guy taking pictures and waving. That's what it is. So most of the people have either gotten out or they're staying home. Look, I grew up on the Gulf Coast, and we are a stubborn group of people. Hurricanes, we're used to it. So a lot of people have said, I'm riding it out. I'm all good. That was when it was a Category 2.
They said that for Katrina.
I wonder what they say if I can talk to them again.
Right, well, given that mentality,
They said that shit for Katrina, too.
fall in what you've seen of the spectrum of concern when these type of storms hit, is it something people are taking real seriously?
And then they wondered why nobody came the day that the hurricane made landfall, and all of a sudden everybody's in the dome.
Yeah, we're all good. But when the police say to you, we're not going to respond, you kind of get it, right? You might have people watching who are like, oh, there are the news people hyping it up. All right, fine. We can take the criticism. But this is a Category 4 hurricane moving at 130 miles per hour that they're saying Brooke is going to roll on shore and stall. If that stalls, they're talking about 11.
Let's see if I can use opposite linguistics not to jinx it. One thing I know it won't do is reach 153.8 miles an hour.
Who are worried. You've got a mayor probably, I don't know, Rockport is 35 minutes from where we are right now. The mayor of that area issued a mandatory evacuation, and just late this afternoon confirmed to CBS News that he's told people in town who decided not to evacuate, he has told them to write their social security number on their arms in case that's the best way to identify them after it's over.
Last thing, David, as you plan your own time there, when do you think it's going to be worse there, and do you think you're going to be able to stay where you are?
Yeah, so we're being told, you know, the 10, 11 o'clock hour. We are going to stay, we're on the side of a building. We have our truck backed up on the side of a building, so it's protecting, so we can transmit what is going on. The hotel here, if we show it, is safe. You've got the Holiday Inn, that's the Omni next door. We feel safe. City officials have told us they feel safe. The hotel is still serving food. You can't buy food anywhere else, Brooke. I mean, if you want a bag of peanuts, you can't even find that. Everything has closed down. So we're anticipating maybe 11 midnight, the storm making landfall. And by the way, the eye, we're told, is a mile wide. So if you're in the eye, and if you've ever been through that, you know it gets beautiful. It's very quiet, nothing. If you're in that eye, 10-mile wide, you could be in it for an hour before it passes over you.
David Begnaud, goes without saying, stay safe, you and the guys.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Harvey is expected to be the worst storm to hit the U.S. in 9 years. We have reporters spread out across Texas. Manuel Bojorquez is keeping an eye on the hurricane from Victoria, Texas.
The first signs of Hurricane Harvey were the last bit of convincing Melissa Nunez and Serafin Montoya needed to evacuate.
At what point did you decide we have to go? Right now.
Victoria is in the bullseye of Harvey's rain, with 20 to 30 inches expected over the next 72 hours. That's as much rain as the city receives in a year. The flooding is expected to be worse than Victoria's 1998 disaster. O.C. Garza is with Emergency Management.
What is your worst case scenario here?
You could HARVEY. That's about as worst case scenario for a community the size of Victoria. We've never seen a forecast for that kind of localized rain, and I've been working hurricanes and emergencies here for 17 years. It's the most dangerous forecast we've ever seen.
Manny Bojorquez joins us now from Victoria, Texas. Manny, we saw in your story 30 inches.
And I could hear the thoughts of my trolls and haters earlier. Oh, he was calling it a megastorm. It's barely gonna be Category 3 for a little while. No, dearies, this is gonna be some horribly fucked up shit.
Just around noon or so, they decided it's time to get out. And the reason why was that specific number of possibly 30 inches of rain. They're in a low-lying area which has flooded before, and they just did not want to risk it. That's the story that officials want to hear. And you heard that official say, this really is the worst-case scenario for this area. And this is a perfect example that the threat of this hurricane is not just a storm surge along the coast and the high winds, which we're starting to get more and more of here in Victoria, but also the flooding that is to come, not just on the onset, but in the days that this storm is expected to stall in areas like this. Feet of rain, not inches. We're talking feet of rain. Life-threatening is the word we hear over and over. Officials can prepare, but they can only do so much after telling people to get out. During the hurricane, they won't be able to go in there and try to rescue people if they do get a call for help, because they don't want to risk themselves either, and there are areas that they may not be able to get to. So the hour of getting out of here, I think, has passed at this point. People need to hunker down. But the situation out here in Victoria just continues to worsen. Before it was just bands of rain, bands of wind. Now it's starting to become much more steady.
Harvey is being compared to Hurricane Ike, which struck nearby in 2008, and that's a storm that killed over 100 people, inflicted more than $25 billion in damage. What precautions are state officials taking this time to try and make those numbers much smaller this time?
Well, one of the things they did, the governor, before the storm even hit, in fact, days before it hit, is declaring a state of emergency in 30 counties. That, of course, starts to free up assets and resources to get people in place where they need to be, best situated for any search and rescue things that need to happen, operations that need to happen after the storm.
Now, someone make sure and find a very creative way to provoke Donald Trump to make sure that he doesn't pay any fucking attention to, you know, being precedent and whatnot. I said precedent because he's not the fucking president.
Just get out of the way. Do not sit this one out. Some people have decided to do that, and we're hoping that we won't see the worst case scenario that we talked with that city manager about. But, you know, these things are unpredictable. The scenarios we're hearing keep getting worse and worse, and we're just going to watch and see what happens here.
You talk about having to hunker down if you're still there. That's because the roads are impassable. There's no one to help you get out.
That's because they're becoming impassable, or they will be in a few hours when you really start to get some of that road flooding, but also because the high winds will prevent you from going over any bridges. Officials shut them down, after the winds reach a certain speed. So if you're in an area where there's one bridge is the way in and the way out, well, if they shut it down, that's it. Or if you live somewhere where a road floods and that's your one way out, well, that's it. And as you can see, the wind, rain picking up here. This situation is only going to get worse as the night progresses. So while some people were still trying to get out today, and officials were very happy to see that, anyone who's decided to stay here will have to contend with the elements.
Okay, last thing, we've been seeing pictures of people prepare, do their best to minimize the damage, but we're talking 30 inches of rain. Do we know what that cleanup effort is going to look like and what people are doing to prepare for it?
Well, you know, you can board up and sandbag as much as you want, but 30 inches of rain, if it hits your home or business, it's probably going to get in. So what the city manager told us today is they're not only planning for their response to the actual storm, but also trying to look ahead and see what they can do to get people help their feet.
I was like, yeah, because sandbags and boarding up windows really saved us during the 20 inches that got dumped on us last August. So, yeah, 30 inches of rain, yeah, all you need is some sandbags and some boards, you'll be all right.
It's the big hope. People at the hotel where we're at right now, they've decided to come here to higher ground, and you almost get a sense of community, people rallying around each other, asking each other how they're doing. You know, they know what they're going through. They know they left behind homes, and they took the belongings that they could, the documents, the pictures. But what about everything else? Will it still be there is the question we keep hearing over and over.
Okay, Manuel Bojorquez in Victoria, Texas. Manny, thanks. The ship channel in Galveston, Texas is the busiest in the country, and it's now closed. A website that tracks marine traffic shows dozens of ships, the ones in red, are being forced to wait out the storm, but many are in Harvey's path. Marco Morgan is in Galveston.
Shelter in place, shelter in your house.
Galveston Mayor James Yarbrough says they are expecting anywhere from 15 to 20 inches of rain and 4 to 7 feet of storm surge, but the city hasn't issued a mandatory evacuation. It is 2:30 here in Galveston, and the city continues to get pounded by the outer bands of Hurricane Harvey. We've already had 2 tornado warnings issued, but the people here are saying they're going to ride it out. Their biggest concern, storm surge.
The wind is not going to be the dominant feature here. It's the water.
About an hour northwest of Galveston, Houston, with over 2 million residents, could get 20 inches of rain over the next several days.
Hopefully this is the wake-up call, but it could become an absolute horror movie.
Jim Blackburn is co-director of Rice University's Severe Storm Prediction Center. He says the city's infrastructure won't be able to take a hit from Harvey.
If we reach those levels, we could see the worst environmental disaster in United States history, and we'll probably shut down and cause a major gap in gas.
Alright, sorry.
Fucking mute it.
You had the remote way over there. Sorry. So I'm just gonna say this. You're saying that maybe we'll learn something. Well, we didn't learn nothing after Hurricane Katrina, and we apparently didn't learn anything after Hurricane Sandy damn near took out all of New England. So something tells me that we ain't gonna learn shit this time either.
No matter how much I try to teach them.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Suppose it might help if, you know, I was allowed to get views on the fucking channel.
we know about Harvey's possible economic impact as it potentially causes damage in that area?
Well, we haven't been able to weigh the possible economic impact just yet. I think those numbers will probably start pouring in probably a day or two from now, because we're still waiting on the storm to make its direct hit further down the coast. But I can tell you this, a lot of people here in Galveston, we thought it would be a ghost town, but people are still headed to work. The power is still working. People are coming out here and taking pictures. But because of the wind damage, actually the mayor talked about, not being afraid of the wind damage and hoping that it didn't cause any problems, but having concerns of the water problems, the flood problems, thinking that could put a dent in the economic sort of society here, have an economic impact, I should say. But we've seen the damage signs falling down. We've seen the wind damaging and destroying a number of things around here, but people are still enjoying themselves. I can count at least about 50 people that's standing sort of behind the camera now, just coming out to take selfies. And we've seen people even go further out here, and they're not supposed to be out here. We've had lifeguards to come by and sort of chase people away, but they are just trying to enjoy this place. But the mayor here is still saying take precautionary measures because there is a voluntary evacuation in place.
As if all those concerns you listed weren't enough, we've also heard possible concerns of tornadoes. Texas Governor Abbott mentioned that even a tornado could strike after power has been lost, which would cause all kinds of trouble. How serious a danger is this tornado problem?
I got to tell you, since we've been out here, we've had at least we've been under the path of two tornado warnings, I should say, had been issued. And because of that, you saw emergency vehicles just pretty much just driving through. Just again reminding people to play it safe, that this is a serious system. I think a lot of people are sort of a lot of residents here are not necessarily on guard because they're saying that they're used to it and they don't believe it's going to happen because it's not the direct path that's not headed toward Galveston. But when those tornado warnings were issued, I think a lot of us are like, whoa, this is serious. We need to be watchful and mindful of what could possibly happen. But no reports of any tornadoes in this area as of yet.
Okay, DeMarco, try and stay upright. My goodness, good to see you. Stay safe. Coming up, President Trump's response to this potential disaster is now another focus. A look at how the White House is handling Harvey. Plus, Texas hospitals are evacuating their most vulnerable patients, including babies in the NICU. This is CBSN.
Find you well, some baby out with the long brown hair. Come on, girl, come to me. I want you, baby, more than you can see. I'm coming hard. It's a coming, baby, you can't stop. Baby, baby, can't stop loving you. I know, baby, no, I can't stop loving you. I can't, baby, no, can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you. People go, they keep running, but they're running too slow. I'm unkind, I know why. Smoke the shit, man, to get real high. Here I'm trying to find you, babe, on a plane of away. I'm crying in the rain, but it's hard to see my pain through you. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh I can stop loving you, loving you, I can't stop loving you, loving you, loving you, loving you. Loving you, loving you, loving, 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 loving you. Trying to leave my soul intact from the demons that are coming at my home. It ain't hard, and it seems I know what's one of his evil schemes. I'm coming fast. Don't stop it now or you break your glass. It ain't hard to understand what it takes to be a loving man. I can't stop loving you. No, 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 can't stop loving you. No, no, baby, no. I said no, honey, darling, no, I can't stop loving you. Oh, what I say now, Sean? I said no, baby, I can't stop loving you. Here we go, take me out. No, 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 I can't stop loving you. Oh, here you come, baby. No, no, baby, I can't stop loving you. Oh, no, no, I can't stop loving you. That's right, loving you, baby. I love you. Woo.
E major. You might want to do A.
Driving at you, baby, at your brain. I'ma try real hard. Play my cards right, baby, not at all. Here it comes, coming to you. I'm finding, baby, what's deep in you. I'ma trying to find myself in this great world with this bad hell. Trying to find you too in the midst of the ills I see, and I know the Holy Ghost, but it tries to get me close. I'm going to a place where I won't find nobody but you. I'm trying to not lose my cool, but it's a coming and I can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you. Peace of mind deep inside, but it's coming, baby, and you can't hide. I'm trying to find you where some baby out with the long brown hair. Come on, girl, come to me. I want you, baby, more than you can see. I'm coming hard. It's a coming, baby, you can't stop. Baby, can't stop loving you. I know, baby, no, I can't stop loving you. I can't, baby, no, can't stop loving you. I can't stop loving you. People go, they keep running, but they're running too slow. I'm unkind, I know why. Smoke the shit, man, to get real high. Here I'm trying to find you, babe, on a plane of parade. I'm crying in the rain, but it's hard to see my pain through you. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh I can stop loving you, loving you, loving you, loving you. loving, 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 loving you. Trying to leave my soul intact from the demons that are coming at my home. It ain't hard, and it seems I know what's one of his evil schemes. I'm coming fast. Don't stop it now or you break your glass. It ain't hard to understand what it takes to be a loving man. I can't stop loving you. No, 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 can't stop loving you. No, no, baby, no. I said no, honey, darling, no, I can't stop loving you. Oh, what I say now, Sean? I said no, baby, I can't stop loving you. Here we go, take me out. No, 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 I can't stop loving you. Oh, here you go, baby. No, no, baby, I can't stop loving you. Oh, no, no, I can't stop loving you. That's right, loving you, baby. I love you.
Palm trees are blowing over like Mitt Romney at Trump Tower. Oh!
I know it's coming so soon. Feel it inside in my heart drive. I know it's coming oh so soon. But I try to find a way to get away from here. I know why can't I get back, get back, get back, get back? I know you coming through. You're trying, oh you're trying to get me. You're trying too hard. I'm going, baby, I'm going too far. I want something better than this, yeah, 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 yeah. I see dark souls lost and gray. You know I know it's all gone away. I feel something yesterday, but it's taken so far away. I know it's coming so soon. It's coming oh so soon, but I try to find a way to get away from here. I know why can't I get back, get back, get back, get back? I know you coming through, you're trying, oh you're trying to get me, you're trying too hard. I'm going, baby, I'm going too far. I want something better than this, yeah, 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 yeah.
Like the debt ceiling and the budget, where you're going to need some Democrats to come on board, and you want the Republicans to negotiate from a position of strength. But there's another theory called, and I'm going to use some technical political science words here, Republicans are weasels. And the weasel Republicans are going to sell out on President Trump, particularly on the issue of the wall. And I don't think a lot of us in the punditocracy understand just how profound the wall. I mean, the wall is the Trump read my lips, no new taxes. It's the thing, and people identify with it. And he really feels a lot of pressure, I believe, and based on other reporting, to get that wall, something. It doesn't have to be, boarded, but get some stuff up you can point at. And I think that he thinks the Republicans are going to do what they've done in the past, which is you get some negative op-eds. And you run away from the issue of immigration. You're scared of being called a racist by the New York Times editorial page. And I think he's showing them that there can be incoming fire from their base, and that they got to decide now, who are you worried about more? Liberals who already don't like you and are not going to vote for you, or your base, which in the past Republicans could blow off because what are they going to do? Vote for a Democrat? No. Now they've got something else, a Trumpocrat. And there could be real pressure on them. And that's the interesting dynamic right now. Is Trump trying to warn Republicans, look, you can't do what you usually do and weasel out on these tough...
Get it right. He's an oligarch satellite dictator.
Be real pressure on them. And that's the interesting dynamic right now. Is Trump trying to warn Republicans, look, you can't do what you usually do and weasel out on these tough issues because for a change, you're going to be held accountable by your base, and I, Donald Trump, am the weapon by which you will be held accountable.
We've also seen the president kind of waffling on his support of Luther Strange down in Alabama. What's the significance of that?
Donald Trump doesn't like losers, right? He's the guy who likes war heroes who don't get captured. I mean, this guy, Trump there is no like loyalty or, hey, a good fight there. You lost, but no, he wants to win. Winners are good. That's the thing. And if Luther Strange were up by 20 points, Donald Trump would be his best friend.
Late Friday, the White House announced it's going to go forward with this ban on transgender military service members, but, big but, it seems like the president is going to defer the implementation of that to Defense Secretary Mattis. So what does that mean for this ban or not really a ban? What's happening?
Well, let me offer a perspective from the Trump base on how they view this. This is one of those issues where the first take on it is emotional. We don't want to be mean to people. We admire whether you're Phil or Phyllis, that you want to serve your country, you want to put your life on the line. There's an emotional veneer over the top of this. Nobody wants to be mean. But underneath that, there is the logical, practical level. The Rand Corporation, which is a very nonpartisan, left-leaning, kind of a facts research group, they did a study and said that when someone goes through the surgeries, et cetera, that are involved with the transition, they are unable to be deployed for 238 days. They can't do their job of breaking things and killing people. And there are a lot of people in the Trump base who get very frustrated with the kind of emotional take, that what they would call the kind of cupcake take on things. And they just want a decision that's made based on one thing. Can you execute the mission? Transitioning surgery is very expensive, separate from the impact it has on you as a potential warfighter. And so I don't understand why Trump, to be honest with you, why Trump is talking about this. I mean, I'm in the talk, end of the medium, and I never hear people talk about this issue. Yeah. It's not a hot issue. I would argue that women in combat is a hotter issue than this. But there is another level that is not about hate. It's not about bigotry. It's not about catering to an evangelical Christian base. I went to Oral Roberts University. My parents are evangelical Christians. They never talk about this. There is a pragmatic issue here that is worth considering. Doesn't make President Trump right or wrong. It just shows that there's real science, real serious information underneath this issue.
Okay, if someone watches this chat in 6 months, we might be accused of burying the lead, because this is only my third question. The Wall Street Journal has this story today that special counsel Robert Mueller may be looking into a role that one-time National Security Advisor Michael Flynn may have played in, if not hacking Hillary's emails, getting the already hacked emails into his hands. This seems like it would be a huge story.
Absolutely, and I look forward one day to having a license plate on my car made by the former National Security Advisor of the President of the United States. Michael Flynn is the guy. He is the lowest of the low-hanging fruit in the Russia-Trump scandal story. The question has always been, does the Michael Flynn behavior, remember, he's got other problems, taking money from Turkey, taking money from Russia, from people representing Russia. He's got all kinds of undisclosed money issues. He's clearly in trouble. Can you make the step? Mike Flynn said, we need these emails to be distributed. We need them in the media conversation, and Donald Trump. If you can't make that next step, then I don't know that anything's really changed, because Michael Flynn was already in trouble. If you can make that next step, or if that inspires Mueller to power up the investigation in that lane, if you will, then that could be a real problem for President Trump.
There's been a lot going on in the last couple of days. I mean, we have satellite imagery of a hurricane in the corner of our screen. It seems like the president is kind of getting out of the shadow of his Charlottesville comments and the uproar over them. And then there's this interview by economic advisor Gary Cohn, where he criticizes the president. Do we think he's out from under this, or does it drag on?
No, President Trump has forever stained his presidency with the comment about very fine people showing up at a neo-Nazi rally. There just is no way out of that. Now, a lot of conservatives are mad because they don't think that there's been enough coverage of the fact that there were violent elements who showed up to oppose the neo-Nazis. The Antifa movement is going to be a problem for Democrats in 2018 and 2020. But he can't get past that. But I also will say this. President Trump has seemed to have almost an agenda of reducing the presidency from something with a sense of profoundness about it, and more into something that's aligned with, say, show business, if you will. And that's a bad metaphor. And 2 weeks from now, I'll sound smarter, I promise. But there is this kind of trend. Today is a reminder that when North Korea is firing unidentified objects, out in the sea, when hurricanes are barreling towards the coast of the United States and people are counting on the government to literally protect their lives, you want a president with gravitas. And for all of the Trump supporters who kind of like the fact that he kind of shoots from the lip, and basically we have like a talk radio caller as president of the United States, this is the downside of that. There is a consequence to having somebody who treats the presidency so cavalierly. And I think we're seeing that right now.
When Sarah Huckabee Sanders was asked about Cohen's response today, she pointed out the other 95% of the interview that you don't want to talk about was on policy, a lot of that tax reform. So let's talk policy for just a second. Where does tax reform stand?
That's a great question. One thing that's happened is with the people who've gone out, like Steve Bannon being forced out of the White House. He had a more populist view, kind of a get the rich, on behalf of the blue collar workers, people. A lot of the people who have that view around the president are now gone. And you have a lot more than kind of the traditional, I think maybe you want to call them Paul Ryan Republicans, in the sense that they believe that lowering tax rates broadly, closing loopholes and taking away deductions broadly, results in the kind of growth that the Reagan tax cuts launched 30 years ago. And so I think what you're going to see is a lot of kind of familiar themes about tax cutting. The talk about like a border tax. You haven't heard a lot about that in the last couple months, because that was a tool that the nationalist wing of the White House wanted to use. I think what you're going to see is talk about a very traditional Republican tax cut. And the question is, can you get Democrats to cross over for a pro-growth tax cut that they would normally support if the President of the United States were Marco Rubio or Scott Walker? But he's not president. The president is Donald Trump.
Well, you mentioned dearly departed Steve Bannon, now back at Breitbart Media.
Right.
What role does he have, or what influence can he have shooting from the outside in?
I would say that it's similar to what I described about Trump and these kind of squished Republicans who don't want to deal with tough issues like immigration, and he wants to remind them, hey, the days of just walking away from it are over. I would not be surprised if Breitbart doesn't take on that role for the Trump presidency, to say to the president, look, there are a lot of promises you made. Maybe you made them because you're just a politician. Maybe you don't share our ideology, because most of the smart people I know don't think President Trump really has an ideology. Not that he's dumb. It's just that it's kind of whatever is for Trump. There's not a broad, conservative or libertarian or whatever. And I think they're going to try to use their influence on the Trump base to try to apply pressure to try to get Trump to stay close to some of those nationalist ideas, like the wall that he campaigned on to become president.
Okay, Michael Graham, lots of good stuff from Boston. Thanks a lot.
Happy to be here.
New aggression from North Korea. Several short-range missiles were fired Friday. It comes after Kim Jong-un test fired a missile last month that could have reached the U.S. based on its design. David Martin joins us on the phone. David, thanks a lot for joining us. Pacific Command says they detected a number of these ballistic missiles launched from North Korea around noon local time in North Korea. What more can you tell us about what happened?
Well, the Pacific Command says that the first and the third missiles that were launched failed in flight, and the second blew up almost immediately after it lifted off the launch pad. So these tests appear to have been a failure. It's not clear what North Korea was trying to do. They launched these three in the span of about 30 minutes, so it was some sort of practice for a salvo of missiles. But one of the problems with trying to gauge the North Korean missile program is you're never quite sure what they're...
So they didn't fail. They detonated them. What they were testing was the salvo fire.
Say that if two of these missiles failed in flight and the second one blew up almost immediately after liftoff, that this was not a successful test from North Korea's point of view. The question is...
you're psychic now.
Did the North Koreans simply do something wrong, or did the United States, through either electronic jamming or through cyber attack, do anything to interfere with the tests? And that we simply don't know the answer to.
And David, as we look at file tape of previous tests before today's, President Trump, and for that matter, even Russia and China couldn't have been clearer. North Korea, knock it off, no more tests. What is the response we could anticipate, or what response has been threatened in exchange for this?
Well, earlier this week, the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, was mildly praising North Korea for not having tested any more missiles since that last test of the one that had the range to reach the United States. And he thought that maybe Kim Jong-un was trying to show some restraint as a first step toward trying to begin negotiations over how to come to terms with North Korea's ballistic missile program. Obviously, Kim Jong-un has decided to resume testing. You could say that if these are short-range missiles, then they weren't as threatening as an ICBM. None of these missiles had the range to reach either the United States, certainly, and not even the island of Guam, but they still had the range to reach U.S. bases in South Korea, and the UN sanctions are against all ballistic missile tests. So North Korea is still violating UN sanctions, even if it is a test of short-range missiles.
Some of those bases you could just about throw a stone to. David Martin, our man at the Pentagon. Thanks so much, David.
Sure thing.
We're back after a quick break. You're watching CBSN. Always on.
Hey, Katrina.
Alright, so welcome to the Lost Forgotten channel. Hi, Carlos. We have been intermittently watching news and tracking the Hurricane, which was just upgraded to a Category 4 despite their predictions, and you know, I could sense the people doubting my prediction, you know. But I tried to tell you nothing's going to stop this thing from strengthening at a rate that they've never really seen before. And it's because of the surrounding air masses. It's glorious. Just look at how much space it's taking up. It merged with an upper level low, and it's a perfect storm. It might even make it to Category 5 before it finishes making landfall. It's still got enough daylight to do it. It'll make it there about 7:45 Central Time if it does. It is currently 7:03, 7:02-ish. I think it was 1. So, that's what you missed. Here we have a Corpus Christi camera that I kind of like the look of. So I'm going to keep that one on for a while and put some music back on. Feel free to make requests on any of my songs, you know, because they're my songs, and that means I'm allowed to play them. My copyright. Anyways.
But I'm just going to put some of the mellow background harmonica type music on for a while. So, hope you enjoy. Because I'm busy.
It's all gone away. I feel something yesterday, but it's taken so far away. I know it's coming so soon. Feel it inside in my heart, darling. I know it's coming oh so soon. But I try to find a way to get away from here. I know why can't I get back? I know I feel something yesterday, but it's taken so far away. I know it's coming so soon. Feel it inside in my heart. I know it's coming oh so soon. But I try to find a way to get away from here. I know why can't I get back? I know you coming through. You're trying to get me. You're trying too hard. I'm going, baby. I'm going too far. I want something better than this. Yeah. away, get away from here. I know why can't I get back, get back, get back, get back? I know you coming through, you're trying, oh you're trying to get me, you're trying too hard. I'm going, baby, I'm going too far. I want something better than this, yeah, 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 yeah.
Alright, so we're about to call it a broadcast, folks. Let's do one last zoom in on the radar here. It looks like we have eye wall hitting land. And perhaps CBS will give us a quick update. Still Category 4.
Okay, Mayor McComb, thanks so much. I think you know you.
So.
I'm still getting sprained, but the winds hopefully will begin to subside.
Okay, Mayor McComb, thanks so much. I think you know you and your city are in all of our thoughts tonight, so hope you weather it the best you can.
It looks like they just got an eye wall hit and are probably getting a false sense of hope right about now. So pray for those people that they don't drop their guard too soon. And thanks for watching, everybody. Click the like button if you don't mind, and make sure you're subscribed. Peace.
I know I'm walking out that door the way it treated me too many times before. Don't you know you love them, baby, too? Oh, you know I want you there, I wanna be right there with you. I know I gotta keep you by my side till the day I die. 'Cause baby, ecstasy is in my hand. Oh, when I'm holding yours in mine and walking in the sand.